Okay, so doing something literally nobody asked for. But basically procrastinating on applying for jobs currently. And I figure what better way to do that than by spreadsheeting stuff in Warframe that doesn't really require spreadsheeting. So I have a rather, I'm also hoping that none of this breaks, which is very possible that it will while I'm doing stuff here. But in any case, I have a rather large workbook in Excel for Warframe for different components. So some of them are effectively deprecated, some of them I haven't been updating, and some of them I have been and continually using. But in any case, there is a bunch of different tabs for different things. It's mostly helping me organize information, so knowing, for instance, where to go for certain parts, which is especially useful when there's multiple parts available in different places, especially in Railjack, which is a complete clusterfuck now with how you achieve Ash. But in any case, nonetheless, I'm looking at doing Zaws today because it is one of the few things in Warframe that I haven't maxed out yet as far as sources of mastery rank. So I have, for instance, some stuff for the Kuva Liches, as shown here, and the Tenet Sisters of Parvos, etc. But I have a lot of the arc guns. I have almost every Warframe, and so it's sort of me going through and trying to finish different classes of stuff. And traditionally, what I've done is if there's a modular system, as seen with the amp screen here, as well as with the adversary weapons and with the companion screen, is I try and sort of min-max each of them so I can give each object sort of its own niche where I know it's going to be most effective. So, for instance, with how the old companions worked with the Kubros and the Kavats and the Sentinels, they all kind of did their own sort of gimmick thing, but some of them were exceedingly better or more valuable of gimmicks than others. So, as a result, a lot of them were sort of second seat to the main ones. So this is my attempt to sort of rectify that, since there are like 35 some unique companions in the game now, trying to sort of look through them and find a niche for each of them rather than only continuing to run 3 different companions. So in the case of Zaws as modular weapons, which you're going to end up keeping in theory for quite a while afterwards, as can be seen from the sheet. I'm currently just looking at links. So you have a bunch of different parts that you can combine and put together, and there is a lot of information here. So my attempts to try and organize that information, I already have part of it done, as you can see on the second half of the screen there with the Excel document. My headset cut out because it wasn't hearing anything. So I am going to have to find some way to give it audio so it doesn't cut out. So I will try and correct that real quick. Okay, so what I just did is I slapped on music, which definitely did not show the screen for. And then I just have the audio muted, which should work for the purposes of what I'm doing. Excellent. Okay. Right, so looking at combining the different items and then finding sort of a meaningful way to use each of them, I don't know to what degree that'll be possible. I know, for instance, that the plague items to deal viral are preferable to pretty much all of the other ones that I've seen, but and I'm not going to necessarily go through and say this is the build I'm going to do for each of them, but basically the sort of information setup I do for them to be able to reach those conclusions afterwards. So this, I suspect, isn't going to be an incredibly long video, and is sort of going to be a bit of a weird one to begin with for the sake of me just spreadsheeting stuff, but Oh wow, look at that. They even made a little tool here. Oh, that is really way too much information. All right, anyway, so we're just going to ignore that and also probably ignore most of people's conclusions that they've already reached by looking at this data. But in any case, looking at the 3 different components, so there is the mastery rank giving strike. There is the grip, which determines a damage and speed bonus as well as if the weapon is 1 or 2-handed. And then there's links, which will, regardless of if it's 1 or 2-handed weapon, regardless of what strike you pick, will affect the speed, critical chance, status chance, and damage bonus. So I have already looked at a similar system for the links before, where it's a speed, damage, and critical status chance table. So this is an example of one of them that was made. It's not explicitly the one that I'm thinking of, but just as an example, saying, okay, well, if you sort of organize these, there's always a trade-off for the different loaders. So you can kind of determine, you know, what's best in slot for a specific thing you're looking for. So for instance, Splat has the largest magazine, has a, well, not the largest magazine, but the largest magazine that you can get with the highest critical chance. So being able to reach that sort of information, with this being specific to kick guns, I'm sure there's probably already one for Zaws, but I am going to just be making it myself just for the sake of having all the data I know I need and having it be able to be presentable rather than having to refer to a external resource. So yeah, so I already did some of this data, thus I'll be having to redo it, I suppose, just for the sake of clarifying what's going on. But in any case, basically I took the amps page to begin with, which is another modular weapon/item page, and then I just duplicated that, so that's the base, and all of this information here will probably be deleted afterwards, but in the meantime I'm just keeping it there for the placeholder format, likewise with the arcanes, which in this case I guess is virtuous and will be Exodia when we get to it. But in any case, so looking at the table here for links, like I said earlier, there is a speed to damage antagonistic bonus and then a critical chance to status chance antagonistic bonus. So if you increase one, then the other corresponding one will decrease, which in the case of critical status chance is those two, and then the chance in the case of speed and damage is those two. So for instance, you can have a variety of different highest speed bonuses that each give their own critical and status balance. So what I did is I looked through the list of speed bonus and damage bonus, which again are corresponding. So if you have a 0.167 speed bonus, you always have the damage bonus of -8. And I added that into the left-hand side here. So there's 4 categories: 0.167 for -8 damage, 0.083 speed bonus for -4 damage bonus, -0.67 for +14, and -0.133 for +28. So that's on the side here. I might end up changing it so that it's on the top or whatever, but in any case, this is just the bare bones attempt at it. Likewise, I looked at the different critical chances. So there's +14% for -8% status, 7 for -4 neutral, -4 for 7, and then -8 for 14, for instance. So that is serving as the top here. So next, what the plan is I just copied the data directly from the wiki here, which shows the table sorted, and then I can sort this as needed here to fill in the data. So rather than trying to input each one, so looking at, okay, this is 0.167 and then a +7 -4, and then just doing it one by one, I'm doing a little bit more methodically, hopefully, where I can actually sort this table and go through the table from left to right. So for instance, if I start at the top left and I look for something that has the highest crit chance bonus and the highest speed, I can sort this table by the speed column from high to low, and then the critical chance one from high to low. So in this case, it actually sorted it, unsorted it because it was already sorted. But in any case, I can look and see, okay, well, there's no +14% critical chance one. That is a 0.167 speed, but there's the next one, which is the Varjit Jai 2, which is going to be at the 7% crit, -4%. So I just find this easier because I can double sort the table rather than here on the wiki where you can only sort by one thing at a time, to just be able to go from left to right. So there's the Jai 2 at the 0.67 without any critical chance or status chance bonus, and then likewise the Aquana at -4 and 7. So then looking at the next row, we have the Varjeet 2 Jai at 0.83 with no bonuses. So again, this isn't actually organized in a way that makes sense to me because it's putting the dash first. But I didn't put the dash first up here. Sort by speed, and then if we sort by the crit column from high to low. That looks like it consistently puts the dash at the top, unfortunately. But I can just do that. It should correct it, even though it looks a little more grotesque. All right, so for the next row, so for 0.83, we have a 14, we have a 7, we have a 0, that would be the other two, so in theory if I was smarter I just would have done that and then transposed it. Or not. Thank you. Okay, and then rinse repeat, so 14, 7. So again with these 5, the next row. Should still be correct. Guan 2, Ruheng, Guana, Ruheng, Varjeet, 2, Ruheng, nice. And then we have the last 3, which will probably be the same thing with the corners chopped off. So we have the 7, the neutral, and the -4 for crit chance. Cool, so if we lengthen these appropriately, we can see that there's actually nothing that gives you a max speed increase and max critical chance. You have to pick one or the other, just like with the kit gun graphic that showed up, which makes sense. So now we have the link spreadsheet, so we have all the information we're going to need from there for that. We can look at the grips. It's pretty much just going to be a direct copy paste for data, likewise with strikes. Yeah, so pretty much that was the only really exciting thing, I guess, was turning the link table like this, where it was a comparison of the links to their stats to a little choice of links for the stats that you want, I guess. Yeah, so in any case, once I have all the data down, then what I'm going to do is very much like with the other search functions I've done, where you can just select one and it'll pull all the stats together. Yeah, or I mean, I don't even need to do any sort of calculation. In theory, I can probably just say, okay, if I want a high damage item, then I take the highest damage here, I take a, plus damage here, and then I take the highest damage here along with critical chance or whatever. But in any case, pretty straightforward. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the only thing that actually needs to be shown being spreadsheeting. So again, just sort of doing it on a whim. If that'll ever actually be useful information for anybody or anybody else, I don't know. But in any case, there is that made nonetheless.